I just think it's so important to be able to question the status quo, question the rules, ask the right questions, and then be willing to work on that.
Hello there. This is John Bernatovich, your host of the HR Like a Boss podcast. Thank you for listening. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share with a friend. I've embarked on a journey to get to know amazingly awesome HR and business professionals, and I'm trying to understand what it takes to do HR like a boss. On today's show, I am so excited to have Erin Demos. Erin was introduced to me by a mutual friend, and I cannot wait to have her share all of her insights with our wonderful guests and all of our listeners on the HR Like a Boss podcast. So Erin, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Is there anything else as it relates to the cornerstone aspects in your mind of what HR's true north is, why you're doing what you're doing in human resources?
And I think one is to be the bridge between the company and people. And as that bridge, to remind one about the other, right? You're always reminding the company. When I say that, I usually mean, say, other senior leaders, for instance, right? Or people who are designing policy or setting up the next sales strategy about how does that affect the people that are involved? And then when you're talking to people who might come to you and say, hey, I'm burnt out, or I don't understand this, or I'm upset about this policy, to remind them, hey, we're still part of this bigger organization, right? And Rationale is amazing. It has this concept of the entrepreneur within the business. And we want people to really own their work. And that's at every level, right? From our warehouse people up to our president. But still within that, you have to know that you're part of this bigger organization. And so everything you do affects somebody else. And so I do think that reminding, again, both parties about the other is another really critical function of human resources. And then it's that caretaker of the culture, So again, if we have a company mission and a company strategy, clearly the leader of an organization also is really critical to company culture. But for me, I also think that is a really important HR role, because again, if I'm not doing it, who else is doing it? Who else is saying, hey, we're growing really fast. How do we keep the culture that we had? And it's not that it can't evolve or change, but we should have a culture. I should be able to say, this is what Rationale is about, whatever that might be. And then that really comes into that final piece for me, which is that the employee value proposition. And again, that's kind of HR terms to throw out there, right? But like, why do people want to come here? And why do they want to stay here? And to me, so I put those pieces together, right? We have the value at the top, kind of company structure, and you have getting the employees there. And then all those pieces are in the middle to make those mesh together. And that is how you have an amazing organization, because you can't have one without the other. But I think that might be maybe the North Star, as you say, is how do you meld that why do I work here with how do we drive the company forward all at the same time?
I'm curious how HR can model the behavior of loving what they do and the people that they serve.
When I was thinking about this point, what really came to mind for me was the idea of positive attitude, but also believing in positive intent from people. And this is kind of a personal and core value of mine. But I thought that, even on hard days, you have to remember that most people, most of the time, actually want to do a good job, right? And if they've made some decision or something has happened that maybe I don't understand why it was made, how do you have to hold on to that kind of positive intent and say, okay, no one went into this trying to do this poorly or trying to make that person upset or trying to do a bad job. So what am I not understanding? Again, it's kind of the curious question that goes back to even the constructive criticism, right? What am I not understanding about their approach or why they felt like they needed to take it that way, right? And then that, I think, is sort of how you show you love people in your job. And then once you have that same spin going on, whether it's you wanting to build one-on-one relationships with people or you trying to facilitate relationships with other people, either way, I still feel like that concept of positive intent, like let's all understand or try to understand that everyone is coming to the table wanting to do the best job they can most of the time, right? That's going to be my general. There's always going to be an exception, of course. And when you do that, it's about how can we all look good together? It's not about how you do your job and how I do my job and like me trying to be better than you or make myself look good. But if you can understand that everyone's trying to do a great job, I think that is how you build a relationship, right? Because I'm going to go in believing that this is how we move the organization forward. And it's not about being gullible, and just like hunky-dory and that no one is ever going to do anything bad. But that is how you love what you do. I know the value I bring because I go into it with a positive intent, because I know I'm trying my best and I know that person is trying their best and they're trying their best. And that becomes evident to everyone at the same time. And so now you love what you do because you're approaching it positively. Other people love what they do, right? And they know that you care about what they do. And it just all comes from that, just that little spirit of positivity, whether it's trusting in them or me just bringing that attitude every day. And I just think that is so critical to relationships in general.
I wonder how important it is for HR to balance that compliance aspect of what you're doing while being flexible to the business climate changes that are happening. Well, for the last 2 years, seems like every single day, if not every single hour. What is your thought on that?
I think it is so critical. I mean, I can't go change the law today, right? But as far as internal policies and internal procedures go, and by the way, I'm a big proponent of democracy, go try to change the law if you want to change the law. But for that everyday kind of pieces, right? If you're finding that there is a policy or procedure that doesn't work for you, be open to changing it, right? Have those conversations and don't go rogue and just do it on your own, right? But work with that organization and say, you know what, this doesn't really make any sense. Why do we have this policy? Why do we have this piece of an agreement? Why do we do things this way? Or, hey, we don't have enough structure. I'm finding that as we grow or as the business environment changes or whatever it might be, that we really need to do something differently. I just think it's so important to be able to question the status quo, question the rules, ask the right questions, and then be willing to work on that. I think the flip side is, of course, you need to be open to people coming to you and saying, hey, I don't like your policies. I think you need to change them, right? I mean, it's kind of the same. It goes both ways, but that's another HR task, right? We're the ones that are a lot of times writing the handbook and writing the policies and having to also be the police and to roll them out. Like, no one wants that role in a meeting. So guess who gets to like tell everyone that our dress code is changing? HR. Guess who does sexual harassment training? HR, right? Guess who gets to tell people that we're taking away something? HR. I mean, like, that's our job. So at the same time, then I think you get to push back and say, none of this is working. Like, here are all the complaints from people. We need to change this.
Tell me what you think is the definition of someone that does HR like a boss.
So when I first heard that phrase, I mean, the thought that comes to mind is just the sense of ownership, right? So whatever your role is in HR, and maybe it's just payroll, maybe it's recruiting, whatever, but you really own it, right? You are willing to step in, to be engaged, to make changes, to ask questions, and to take responsibility for those pieces of it. And that's a really core value for me personally, right? Is that sense of responsibility. But then the other piece of it is, like you said, it's almost like being a business owner. It's to have confidence. I mean, there's that phrase that I hate, the girl boss from 5 years ago or whatever. And what does it mean to do something like a boss? I think it's, you like walk in, like head held high, big, like own a room, right? It's sort of that and that's what charisma is, but that's what I need in your job too. Like, have that sense of ownership and have the sense of confidence. And it's totally true. If you don't even feel it, you can fake it, right? Pretend that you do. And people are going to treat you like you do. If you act like you know what you're talking about, they'll believe you. And eventually you learn what you're talking about. So that's what I think that really meant when I kind of said that. It's own it and be confident in your own ownership of whatever your space is that you need to be in.
I cannot tell you enough, Erin, how much I enjoyed having you on today's podcast. And I wish you nothing but the best and continued success.
Thank you so much. It was fun. I was happy to be here.
Thank you for checking out the HR Like a Boss podcast. If it resonates with you, please consider leaving a rating and review. And better yet, subscribe and share with a friend. Until next time, let's continue to aspire to do amazingly awesome HR.